Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Beginning a new month and saying hello here in the SportsIQ. Larry Smith, glad you're with us here, along with producer Tony and editor Josh. Good show coming up here. We're going to talk a little Major League Baseball with AJ Scott here in just a couple of minutes as we're now entering a new month, getting close to the All-Star break, so about the halfway point of the season. We'll get his thoughts on MLB. And a bit later, talking a little NFL. Nick Farabaugh coming up here, talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers as we're in the camp. And hard to believe, again, with, July is here, so we're just a few weeks away from NFL camp opening as well. By the way, if you missed yesterday's show, Tuesday, June 30th, go back and check it out. A lot of sports finance we talked about. Our friend Michael Leroy, who is a sports law expert, breaking down kind of the NIL, had some surprising takes, if you will, on some of the money deals that are happening. So we'll get into that coming up. Yesterday didn't play out exactly the way Serena Williams had hoped, but she did put on quite a show at Wimbledon. Serena back in her favorite spot, the All England Club, and on center court against Maya Joint, the 20-year-old American-born Australian. She's a two-time champion on the WTA Tour, had just won 3 singles matches this season entering Tuesday's clash, and just one since January. She admitted after the match that she had not been able to sleep the night before in anticipation of facing Serena. Well, Williams battled for 2 hours and 22 minutes, but came up short 6-3, 6-7, 6-3. At the end of the match, Williams, always one of the greatest ambassadors for her sport and her country, smiling and waving happily to the crowd that included her 8-year-old daughter, Olympia, as she walked off the court. Will Serena play again in singles? Well, no one knows for sure. She did not speak with the media after the match. But if it was, this was truly the final time she plays in a singles match at Wimbledon or any other WTA event. She went out as she has always done, with grit, determination, class, and dignity. If you were lucky enough to watch the match, you witnessed a true champion, not only in her sport, but a champion of humanity. We're big fans of Serena's. We'll get to more about her, get to see her at Wimbledon this week. She teams up with her big sister, Venus, who's in attendance on Tuesday. They'll play doubles. They will take on Sierra and Osono in the first round. The Williams sisters have won 14 major doubles titles together, including 6 at Wimbledon. So that was just one of the big stories on Tuesday. The other big story, we sort of alluded to it a little bit, and it came up big later. LeBron James coming back for a 24th NBA season, but it won't be with the Lakers. James informing LA that the franchise can move on without him because he will play elsewhere. That's what his agent told ESPN. LeBron James, one of the greatest athletes in history, will always be thankful for his 8 years with the Lakers, including the title that he led us to in 2020 under the toughest imaginable circumstances and the countless records he broke in purple and gold. This is from Lakers Governor Jeannie Buss in a statement. We wish him the very best in the future, both on the court and off. He will always be cherished as a part of the Laker family, end quote. More from the NBA coming up here a bit later in the show, but LeBron James making this move. And so the thing now is that, will this be his final move? He did make sure that Bronny got his contract guaranteed. His son, LeBron Jr., second round pick. He's played 2 years in the league, got that guaranteed before he takes off. But where will he play now? 2 stints in Cleveland. He played 4 years in Miami, won 2 titles there. Now the Lakers. So a lot of speculation we talked about yesterday, maybe to the Warriors. We will see what happens. We know this much already. The Today Show on their headlines mentioning LeBron. So get ready for an onslaught of LeBron news from now until he makes his choice. Time now for today's moment of awe. The Olympic Games date back to ancient times, but it was on this day, July 1st, 1904, when they came to the United States for the first time. The modern Olympics, born in Athens, Greece in 1896. 8 years later, they landed in St. Louis. Now, the first American Olympics was supposed to be in Chicago, but it was moved after St. Louis threatened to stage its own global athletic competition as part of the World's Fair it was hosting. Not only the first games to be held in the New World, but the 1904 Olympics, well, they were the first to award gold, silver, and bronze medals. Because of travel difficulties and concerns due to a war between Russia and Japan, only 12 nations took part, meaning about 90% of the participants were American. The games, held mainly at Washington University, lasted for nearly 5 months. The first golf course west of the Mississippi River was one of the venues, and the centerpiece, Francis Olympic Field on campus, is still in use to this day. And that's our moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ, Larry Smith continues right now. It is July 1st, and that means it is Bobby Bonilla Day. Yes, for the 16th year, the former Major League Baseball outfielder gets his nice little annuity of about $1.16 million. By the way, Bonilla is now 63 years old. We were looking up, producer Tony and I were looking up, trying to figure out like when this is over. Like, surely this has got to be almost done. This goes through 2035. There are 9 more years that we have. Bobby Bonilla is going to be north of 70 by the time he gets his last check from from the Mets. All right, AJ Stone. He is a Major League Baseball writer for Just Baseball. AJ, congratulations. Did you get your check from the Mets today?
Unfortunately, I was left out of Bobby Bonilla Day. I was on the outside looking in on that one, but I get to observe from afar like everybody else and just kind of absorb how unbelievable that is for him that he was able to achieve such a contract at a time like that. And, it kind of is coming back into light in more recent times with stuff that we got going on with the CBA.
Yeah, and what's insane is that we were saying before we started the show, producer Tony and I were talking about this. We're like, why don't the Mets? It's such a black eye every year, especially the season they're having. It's a double black eye, right? I mean, the team's already not playing very well, and you got to write this check every year to him. Why not just go to him and go, listen, can we just write you a lump sum and be done with this? I mean, just to get it, just so you know, the yearly headline. It's become such a punchline every year.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. You start to almost wonder if he kind of likes it that way. He almost wants to rub their nose in a little bit. Be like, yeah, I don't really want to restructure this. I like being reminded that it's Bobby Bonilla Day every year. So I think it might be something like that. But obviously they got plenty of things to be worrying about in the immediate moment as well.
They really do. Yeah. By the way, I mentioned Bonilla 63. I saw one article, I think it was the New York Post, was saying that Bonilla, by the way, hit only 160 that year in 1999. So he was not at all the level where he was before. The team decides to buy out his deal the next January and agrees to defer the remaining $5.9 million with 8% interest across 2011 to 2035. And so here we go. By the way, that $5.9 million already is now over $19 million. And it'll be almost $30 million before they're done. So just crazy. Okay, let's get on from that. AJ, good to have you here on the show. Here we are in July, a couple of weeks away from the All-Star break. What's a team that really has surprised you so far here in the first few months?
When I'm looking around the league, I think there are plenty of teams this year that have been, almost a year or two ahead of where a lot of people thought that they would be. But after an unbelievable June, one team that I'm really looking at is the Marlins. They just had a 20 win month, and in a really crowded NL wildcard race full of a lot of teams like I just said that seem to be a little bit ahead of the curve of where people thought they would be. They feel almost the most real, the most ready for a playoff berth. You've got the Nationals, the Cardinals, the Padres, a lot of these other teams that are kind of in that race as well, but they don't have the pitching. They simply don't have the pitching to, make a run in October. And I think that, the Marlins are in a position where if they went out and made some, additions on the margins, they could be, they can make some real noise.
Yeah. Speaking of staying there, Atlanta had the hot start as well. Are they a team you think will be there come September?
I do think Atlanta will be there. There's almost no doubt that Atlanta will at least be in the conversation because they'll definitely add come the trade deadline. The one thing that scares me a little bit with Atlanta is how poorly they've been performing from the right side, on offense. Austin Riley has not been himself for a couple of years now. And, in their game last night, they faced Cardinals' Matthew Liberatore, left-handed starter. And he had allowed almost, I think, I don't have the exact numbers here, but he had a 2-inning start and then like a 1.2 inning start. His last 2 starts gave up almost like 10 earned runs, something like that, came out and went 5.1 shutty on him. And that's the kind of performance that they've had all year against left-handed pitching because they don't have the right-handed bats. So if they make the additions necessary, they're going to be a real team to watch out for, almost Dodgers competition. But as it stands right now, I'm a little worried for how much length they could have going through the lineup when it comes to October baseball.
Yeah. Meanwhile, one of the big stories in the National League is one that we talk about quite a bit here on the show, And Jacob Mizorowski is just, again, must-see TV. An ERA of under 1.5, and he's got the Brewers right now sitting atop the Central Division.
Yeah, he is unbelievable. And one of the things that I really like to highlight when I'm talking about Jacob Mizorowski is he doesn't just throw, 105 miles an hour. He's got 100th percentile extension. And what that means for anybody who doesn't, know what that means is he is releasing the ball closer to home plate than anybody else. So he's not only throwing it harder than anybody else, he's also releasing it closer to you. So his 102 looks like 105, and his 105 has got to look like something that, nobody's ever seen before. And, he is the star that the Brewers have been waiting on. And it is a joy to watch. And I'm sure it's even more of a joy to watch for Brewers fans, because that's an organization that's done nothing but quality work the past few years. And they finally have that, guy that they can double down on and be like, here's our dog. We're going to go, try to win it all.
Yeah, absolutely. In this era of hitting and homers, are you surprised about how good the starting pitching has been this year? Mizorowski is just one of a number of starting arms that has just been really outstanding here in the first half of the season.
I think in the era of, home runs, launch angle, whatever you want to call it, StatCast, right? I think it actually becomes easier to game plan a little bit for how a hitter's going to approach an at-bat. When you got a guy like Mizorowski who's got 105 in the back pocket and they know exactly where a hitter's hot zone is, cold zone is, stuff like that. Like that kind of data all goes into, a pitcher's approach coming into an AB. And, I'll die on the hill that, pitching is always going to be a little bit easier than hitting is going to be. And when you got aliens like Mizorowski, you got Chase Burns on the Reds, who's having an unbelievable season, guys who are coming out throwing 100 miles an hour as a starter now. Like, you can't game plan against that. You're just going to have to go out there and try to beat their best stuff, and nobody seems to be able to beat it.
Yeah. Obviously the Dodgers, two-time defending champs, and they're on the verge of running away already with the NL West. I mean, going into tonight, already a 12-game lead over San Diego. I don't want to tie this too much into the CBA stuff. We'll get to that here in a second if we have time, but it almost kind of lends to the argument of the haves and have-nots. With the Dodgers, again, two-time champs, they have more money than anybody, they spend more, etc., and they're so far ahead of the game in terms of trying to find ways to even the playing field, if you will, in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand the argument about the Dodgers being ahead of everybody else because of all the money that they spend. But one thing that I like to highlight about them is how much talent they always have lingering throughout their lineup that was developed from within. I don't know where this team would be this year without Andy Pages and Dalton Rushing. They've had a lot of injuries. Will Smith is sitting on the IL right now, and so is Enrique Hernandez. And because of that, they've got Andy Pages and Dalton Rushing filling in, and they're playing phenomenally. And then you look at a guy like Kyle Tucker, who was signed for all that money, and he's been a league average hitter. So that's the gamble that comes with having the checkbook to hand out. Is they're gonna sign Kyle Tucker. This is unfair. Well, if another team had signed Kyle Tucker right now, I think they'd be pretty sour on that signing so far.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Talking with AJ Stone right now. He's a writer for Just Baseball. Over the American League, a story that we haven't talked enough about in the show, and we admit the Chicago White Sox, who were dog poo just a couple of years ago, but now they have been sitting atop or near the top of the AL Central for much of the season. What's going on the South Side?
The South Side, they are in exciting times, man. They've got an unbelievable young core. One thing to highlight, though, with them is I do feel like they're a part of that grouping. They're in the American League iteration of it, but they're a part of that grouping of teams that seems to be ahead of the curve a little bit. Their lineup is chock full of guys with little to no Major League experience, and then Andrew Benintendi right in the middle. And I think that one of the worst things that they could do is buy too hard into this, because it's not the end of a window. It's not like this window is shrinking. This is the beginning of something. So, I was a big believer that Munetaka Murakami was going to become one of the best trade ships ever signed in the offseason. And, I think it might be surprising to say, but I think that could still be the case. The White Sox are in a good position to compete. And I think even without his bat in the lineup, they're a solid team. And I think this team is 2 years away from really becoming a force to be reckoned with.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, what a nice start right now. Are they ahead of schedule right now, the White Sox?
Yeah, 100%. I would say they're ahead of schedule. I think the starting rotation would need a little bit of retooling, and then you've got guys like Noah Schultz and Braden Montgomery, who that's your next wave of talent, and they're still kind of finding their footing at the big league level. You don't want to outpace those guys. You know what I mean? You want to be on the same timeline as your top prospects that are at the big league level, because if you start to become too competitive too quickly, then those guys get ostracized. Like other teams have seen with Jordan Lawler in the desert with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were really competitive, and he's an unbelievably talented player, and he just hasn't gotten the playing time that is necessary for a young player to develop into what they're capable of being.
Right. AL East right now, the Yankees sitting behind Tampa Bay, obviously without Aaron Judge for an extended period with that injury. Can they keep things afloat over these next couple of months until they get Judge back in the lineup?
Short answer, yes. The Yankees, this is a completely different Yankees team than people are used to seeing. A lot of the times it felt like Judge was the proverbial son of that lineup, and everybody else seemed to kind of just orbit around it. And this season they have contributions up and down, and it's largely in part due to the breakout of Ben Rice and the career renaissance of Paul Goldschmidt. And because of that, this is a much lengthened lineup, a much better, much deeper lineup, and the pitching is undeniable. They have an incredible starting rotation. Matt Blake out there, pitching coach, is going to, turn every guy that he touches into gold in the bullpen. And I think this team is going to be just fine. And then when they get Aaron Judge, it'll just be like a steroid, if you will, when he comes back, and it'll be better.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be a New York size steroid as well.
Oh, yeah.
I want to jump back over the National League before I let you go, and a team again that has had just a tremendous resurgence after making a change there in the dugout. The Phillies, boy, they started off right there with the Mets in terms of just terrible. They make the change, fire their manager, and all of a sudden right now they are right in the thick of things there in the National League.
Yeah, the Phillies did what the Mets needed to do, right? The Phillies made the hard decision. They fired their manager, and that's a guy who had a lot of success there. That's a guy who the clubhouse really, he cultivated a really winning culture in that clubhouse, and they made the hard decision, and it paid off. And now they're in a position to compete, and I don't even think that they're firing on all cylinders yet. The pitching is back to normal with Zach Wheeler back in the mix, and he's doing his thing, but they're still waiting on Trey Turner to get going. And they're still waiting on JT Realmuto to get going. And those are veteran guys who have proven that they can do it time and time again. And when that happens, this is going to be a real team to look out for. Yeah.
Who's a team you're looking at in the second half to make a run and maybe be a team poised to make some noise in October?
I'm a little hesitant to say noise in October, but to make a run and get back in the mix, there have been reports that the Houston Astros are looking to add, and they don't want to, close their window. And, I checked their record the other day. They're 2 games under 500. This is a team that everybody seems to have kind of just written them off, subconsciously, like, the Astros used to be the big bad Astros. They'd win every year. They'd be in the ALCS. It was like a pre-programming. They're like, the Astros will make it. But now, after last year, it kind of just feels like they're in this weird baseball purgatory where they're stuck in the middle, but they've still got the talent. They've still got, everything that they need, the framework. And if they add to that, there's no telling what they could do in the second half. And I think that in a weak AL West, that is a sneaky team to look out for.
Yeah. And to your point, there's a couple of games under 500, but also only 2 games behind Texas at the top. So like you said, if there's one division to make a run and make it pretty quickly, it would be the AL West, to your point. Hey, AJ, we're out of time, but man, great to have you on the show. I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll find some time here later in the season to come back in, give us your insights. But in the meantime, enjoy the weekend. Happy 4th.
Awesome. Really great to join you guys.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. AJ Stone joining us once again. He's a writer for Just Baseball. Be sure to check his stuff out. We found him online, and you should go check him out. AJ Stone. Really good stuff. Appreciate his insights here in the show. All right. Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues. Stay with us.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110. Guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, welcome back here to the show. Lots of other things happening. Man, this was a busy day for the last day of June. NBA front, again, we've talked about the free agent window is now open, so we're going to see a lot of big moves. LeBron making his announcement, and now also Kawhi Leonard is in the news as well. The LA Clippers agreeing to trade the All-NBA forward back to the Toronto Raptors for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and in 2033 as well, a 2027 first-round pick swap, and 2 second-round picks. All this according to sources telling ESPN. The deal marks a return to Canada for the star, Kawhi Leonard, who led the Raptors to their NBA title in 2019, winning finals MVP honors along the way after averaging 28.5 points per game in that series win over Golden State. Leonard scored 732 points during that playoff run, the third most in a single postseason in NBA history, trailing only Michael Jordan back in 1992 and LeBron James in 2018. He played just one season with the Raptors. He was traded by San Antonio in July of 2018, left Toronto then as a free agent to then join the Clippers. So he goes back to Toronto where he had his glory. Maybe his final stop, maybe. We will see what happens. But big news there. And again, part of the big shift now. So we've seen 3 of the biggest stars, all former league MVPs, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, and now Kawhi Leonard. We all know they'll be with new teams starting next season. So again, a very different looking NBA already. And again, we are just starting free agency. So who knows what more is still to come. On the World Cup stage, for the first time since hosting the 1986 World Cup, Mexico has won a match in the knockout round. Mexico defeating Ecuador 2-0 in the round of 32 in Mexico City on Tuesday, following an hour delay due to inclement weather. Forwards Julian Quinones and Raul Jimenez recording goals in the opening half to seal the Mexicans' place in the round of 16. Erling Haaland scoring the deciding goal in the 86th minute as Norway won their first ever World Cup knockout match, advancing to the round of 16, a 2-1 victory over the Ivory Coast on Tuesday. 3 defenders converging on Patrick Berg as he moved into the penalty box with the ball. He kicked it over to a wide-open Haaland for his 5th goal in 3 games at this year's tournament. Antonio Nusa scoring with the curling kick for Norway in their 4th World Cup, and they will now play 5-time champion Brazil in the round of 16 on Sunday. That will be at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The other knockout match on Tuesday, Kylian Mbappe is drawing level with Lionel Messi at the top of the 2026 World Cup goal-scoring charts France sweeping aside Sweden 3-0 to seal their place in the final 16 with an exhilarating performance in New Jersey over the Swedes. Now tonight, it's the U.S. men's team getting their chance to grab a spot in the final 16. They take on Bosnia and Herzegovina at Levi Stadium in San Francisco. That's tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And that match, again, is on Fox. The offense has been clicking for Team USA. They've scored 9 goals in their 3 World Cup matches so far, winning their group with 2 wins and 1 loss. But remember, that loss came after they had clinched the spot in the final 32 with wins in their first 2 matches. So, but again, it's exciting to see in the round of 16. Can the Americans advance to the round of 16? We will see tonight, again, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. Okay, we'll talk a little football and much more to come. More Serena and much more still here to come on the Sports IQ. As promised, NFL season, scary. It's July 1. Camps are opening in just a few weeks here. And joining us right now, hopefully somewhere inside and cool, because let me tell you something, there are few places hotter and steamier and sweatier than standing out watching the beginning of summer training camp for an NFL team. Nick Farabaugh joining us. He's the Steelers beat writer for PinLife.com. Nick, good to talk with you. Am I right on that? It's just one of those where you want to go out and see them play, but boy, you just can't find enough cold water.
Yeah, it is extremely hot out, especially for the Steelers training camp. They are out in Latrobe, PA, and if you are on the campus of St. Vincent, which is where they do their dance, it is just a completely open valley. I mean, there is no shade at all. You are getting batted down, and Mike Tomlin used to do the practices at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it would be 95 degrees, feel like 101, sometimes in August. McCarthy's doing it a little earlier at 11, so it won't be quite as bad as it was under Mike Tomlin. But it's bad. And the funny thing was, for the media, we never had like some designated water off to the side or anything, so we kind of had to find our own ways. You had your water jugs and everything. You always wanted to watch the guys play, but if you bring a hat, bring your sunglasses, bring some sunscreen, bring your own water, keep it cool somehow, because there's nothing running from the sun in Latrobe, PA.
Yeah. My thing with when I covered the Falcons, I was a Falcons host for a couple of years back in the day. I wound up carrying like 2 of the large Powerades or Gatorades, like one in my hand and one in my bag, and just kind of find a way to just stay hydrated, while I'm out there just burning up. Well, you mentioned Mike Tomlin, and I think obviously that's the big change. They don't change coaches often in Pittsburgh. Just I think the 4th since the late 60s, I think. Noel Cowher, Tomlin, and now McNamara. How are things different right now here in this offseason and going into the preseason here with the new head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike McCarthy is a different type of coach. Well, not just because he's an offensive coach, but there's a lot of differences in how he runs practices. It's kind of interesting seeing the head coach kind of be so dialed in on the quarterback position and not be a CEO type. Mike Tomlin was a phenomenal CEO type, and he kind of would go from position drill to position drill. That was his thing. He would be at the running backs one drill, then be at the DBs, then be at the linebackers, then walk over to the wide receivers, then go to the tight ends, then go to the O linemen, and finally maybe he would check on the quarterbacks. That's Mike McCarthy's pet project is the quarterback. So he's focused on Drew Aller, he's focused on Will Howard, he's focused even on, in year 22, he's still working with Aaron Rodgers on little things. It's kind of his obsession. He's more of a X's and O's in-depth person outwardly. Mike Tomlin obviously has that side to him. He's a football coach, but I don't think he gave that outwardly as much as Mike McCarthy will. Mike McCarthy, talks about that West Coast offense and all the times he's worked with Brett Favre later in his career, and then Aaron Rodgers, and then to Dak Prescott. And even going back, we can talk about, he started his career in San Francisco with Joe Montana, and he's even brought up, like Aaron Brooks before. And there's just a lot of different X's and O's in the evolution of the game. Mike Tomlin, I think, is a great view into the cultural side of the NFL. How do you maintain a culture? How do you maintain a locker room? I don't think there was anyone better than Mike Tomlin at doing that. Right now, Mike McCarthy's focused on getting this playbook in and getting the basics set down. So it's a little different. We're not hearing as much about the locker room cultural side. We're hearing a lot more about the X's and O's side. It's different. And Mike McCarthy is like the typical Yinzer you would ever meet. It's like seeing your uncle on a Saturday. I mean, I've been here my whole life, been in Pittsburgh my whole life, and Mike McCarthy could fit right in any Pittsburgh family. He's from, he talks about it all the time, that he is from the city and he feels like he's one of the fan base because he grew up watching the Steelers, and there's so many local establishments that know him, and we're happy to see him back. He's got so many friends, obviously, still there. So you kind of feel that Yinzer energy from him. And I think that's a little bit of a different change. Mike Tomlin, though, was such a charismatic person and such a kind of charged person that he was able to just rally the troops. Mike McCarthy, I think, through his almost like awkward Yinzer charm, is able to also kind of get you ready to go. And so it's kind of fun. There's some comparison and contrast there between those two. But I do think it's a little bit different, but I don't think it's actually like insanely different. I think that there are some things that they hold in common that I talked about there.
Well, it would seem like that because the Rooney family, again, if they are synonymous with Pittsburgh, synonymous with the Steelers, right? I mean, they go back generations. That there is sort of like what you have a little bit, I guess, with Green Bay, a little bit with Chicago. We're seeing it change though now that Virginia McCaskey has passed away. There's this sameness there that they're looking for X, and that's what they're going to go after. And so it feels like perhaps kind of what you're saying is with McCarthy, they kind of found that. I mean, it's a different voice, but kind of some of the same principles, if you will, that they've had in the past.
Absolutely. I think there is a commonality to what the Steelers like.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they really like is they like that commanding personality. I mean, Bill Cowher obviously was a very commanding personality, and he was Pittsburgh through and through too, grew up in the area. But I think you thought about Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin, while he had this great, public speaking ability, and the press conferences went viral every week, you also saw behind the scenes the ability to bridge relationships and tinker to the individual and be such a personable person. I think you even saw that with Bill Cowher going back to his days. It was a different style. And I think Mike McCarthy, as I kind of alluded to, has his own way of doing it. He's not the same as Mike Tomlin is. He's not the same charismatic type of person, but he is this kind of, he's this big force. Like, he lets you know that he's in the room, and he commands a room. And I think that's part of it. The Steelers really care about how do you step in front of a room? Can you be this leader of men? And because they think it really goes down through a locker room. I mean, we hear that all the time. Mike Tomlin has Tomlinisms, the standard is the standard, and all of that. But I think Mike McCarthy has his own little tweaks of how he does it. And then Bill Cowher had his, and obviously Chuck Noll kind of started this, and he was someone that had the same things. And so there's a pedigree of winning I think the Steelers really like from Mike McCarthy. He's been to the Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl literally against them. And he's done things in the National Football League that a lot of people haven't done. And so when they were on the market, they could have gone and hired a new young head coach. They did that with Mike Tomlin. They've done it before. But I think they took the kind of look at Mike McCarthy and said, this guy is very similar to the profile of coach that they have hired in the past, and he fits a lot of what they want. And so they want to continue that winning legacy, and they feel like he can do it.
Talking with Nick Farabaugh, he's the Steelers beat writer for PennLife.com. You mentioned in terms of getting a more veteran guy and somebody kind of fits the culture of what the Steelers, what Pittsburgh is all about. Is there a feeling? I mean, look, every team wants to win every year. I mean, there's no question. But is there more of an urgency now with some of the key players being long in the tooth, and Aaron Rodgers, and Cam Hayward, trying to get across this finish line while these guys are still in uniform?
There's no doubt about it. The Steelers have done this kind of half build, half keep it going thing, where they've tried to build for the future while also trying to win now. It's been kind of interesting. We don't see a lot of teams do what the Steelers have done, which is try to win while still trying to rebuild. They've done a job where they're keeping their franchise icons. TJ Watt, though, is 31, going to be 32 this year. He's getting up there in age. Obviously, Cam Hayward, the ageless wonder, continues to go. But the Steelers did do enough to kind of say, we're going to try and win this year. I mean, you look at the moves they made, adding Jamel Dean, adding Michael Pittman, adding Rico Dowdle. They fortified the offensive line. They locked up some of their young players, and Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, and they're going to try and do the same to Joey Porter Jr. here soon. So they're also kind of trying to build for the future, keep the cornerstones that they have in the next generation. But let's keep it a buck here. This generation of Steelers, Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, they haven't had the playoff success the previous generation did. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game in a long, long time.
Right.
And that ate away at Mike Tomlin. And I think you kind of understood, that's part of the reason Mike Tomlin decided to step away was he just felt like a new voice was needed. Mike Tomlin's very smart and understands that. I think TJ Watt and Cam Hayward want to see this drought broken, and they want to see some playoff success come to Pittsburgh. And so there's absolutely an urgency to try and win. The issue is the Steelers are in this weird kind of muck of, they don't really have the future quarterback. They don't have this future locked in completely across the roster. And some of their other pieces, the offensive line's starting to finally mature. They're starting to get older. They're going to be really, really good, I think, this year in the offensive line. But you look at the defense, now the defense is aging up. And so, Jalen Ramsey's getting older. And so you're just seeing a lot of the aging of the defense while the offense, the young players are starting to come together. So it's a weird kind of mix of you got this young core that you want to build up and develop while also trying to win. So there's no doubt about it. There's an urgency for it. You don't bring in Aaron Rodgers. You don't bring in a Mike McCarthy if you don't want to try and win now. But you also have to understand there's a future lens to this where the 2027, 2028, how many of those guys are really going to be there? And you got to understand there's the next generation that has to be set too. So they're trying to do this kind of 1-2 step thing while doing it parallel to each other. And it's tough to do. It's tough to thread that needle, but I think we'll see if they can do it. But there's no doubt about it that this team wants to win football games and wants to win a playoff game soon because they have not experienced that success in a long time.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe that it has been a while since they've won. And like you said, get that win, build that new culture for this next generation. The Steelers, not the only team in the division making lots of changes. Obviously, Baltimore, a new head coach. Cleveland in constant change. No more Myles Garrett. How do they fit into the division right now in terms of trying to get that crown?
It's very interesting because you do mention, all the changes. Cincinnati built up their defense on a real effort to try and fortify that too. But I look at the Steelers and they've taken a different lens to this, right? Baltimore's still stuck in the pocket of what they were, defensive coach. They brought in, it's a modern lens to the defensive coach, but it's a defensive coach in Jesse Minter. You look at Cleveland, and I think everyone kind of understands what Cleveland's doing right now. They're trying to kind of rebuild and retool and be good, 1 or 2 years away, not this year necessarily. For Pittsburgh, it's about trying to tread that water and trying to improve year over year. They feel like they've gotten better at wide receiver. I think naturally they have with adding Michael Pittman, drafting Jeremy Bernard. They feel like they've gotten better there. I think you feel like you've gotten a little deeper on defense. You've added some players at cornerback. You've added some safeties. You added some defensive linemen. So you added some pieces around that really strong group that really, honestly, I think the Steelers defense last year was probably one of the more underratedly disappointing groups in the league. They were not that good last year. They were pretty league average. They were hot and cold. You never knew which team was going to show up each week. They feel like Patrick Graham's going to be able to come in and kind of revitalize that group. And then you look at what they did offensively around Aaron Rodgers, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to come around. They invested in that receiving group. Johnny Smith's gone, so Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington are going to play more. That'll probably be a positive for them. They lose Kenny Gainwell. In comes Rico Dowdle, so they have a bigger back to pair with Jalen Warren. And this offensive line is really young, and they have some pieces there you really like in Fautanu, Frazier, and McCormick. How does a rookie and first-round pick Maxi Honachor fit in? They have a battle at right guard they have to figure out between three players. So they have some things they need to figure out. But I think that they figure – they're probably going to be in that 10-7, 9-8 range again. And so I don't know they're going to win the division with that record this year. I think, Cincinnati has a shot to be better than they were as long as Joe Burrow and that team can stay healthy. I think Baltimore should be pretty good this year, and I really like Baltimore's roster. So the Steelers probably fit somewhere into that second or third range here in this division, but they're going to be knocking on that wild card door, I think, all year. I don't think they're a team that's going to be 12-5, 13-4, but I think somewhere between 11-6, 9-8 probably is where they end up here.
Okay, I want to get one more question on the quarterbacks. Obviously, Rodgers is the guy in 2026, but looking ahead, Drew Aller is there, Howard is there. In talking to McCarthy, which does he feel may have the best potential to be groomed as the next starter for the Steelers?
Well, I think Drew Aller, obviously, just because of the natural tools, he's got every prototypical thing you would look for, right? He's got a rocket arm. He's got great size. He's got good mobility. The natural things that you look for in a prototypical quarterback are there. Now, we've seen the prototypical quarterback change over time, and we've seen those guys come in different forms. And so, Drew Aller is very much an old school coach's favorite, and Mike McCarthy has that old school streak in him. And so Aller has a lot to do still to be much better. He's got to rework his mechanics. They're kind of putting him through a really rigorous QB school, as they've called it, to try and fix that. The accuracy needs to come along. Those reads that he makes pre and post snap, those need to come along. But a lot of it's going to be related to his footwork. And Mike McCarthy kind of tells us this all the time. If you're in a West Coast offense, timing's everything. It's got to be 1, 2, 3 out. Everything about the West Coast offense. It didn't matter if it was Bill Walsh. Doesn't matter if it's Sean McVay's West Coast offense. Everything's based on timing. And so Drew Aller, I think, has raw potential to really be that. And I think they're very high on him. Otherwise, they would not have selected him early in that third round, even after a lot of the doubts, about the big game struggles he had at Penn State, all the rawness coming out, the leg injury he had that ended his season last year. There's a lot of questions about Drew Aller, but I think the raw potential is something that excites them. They've talked about Will Howard a lot too, but I think he's more of a backup type, maybe spot starter type. I think Mike McCarthy sees him. And again, you look at the prototypical size stuff. He's a big quarterback. He's pretty mobile. I don't think the arm's quite electric. It's a fine arm. It's an average arm, but he's really accurate. That's what coaches will love about him. He's a point guard type. If you just tell him to get the ball to your playmakers, you draw it up, he'll get it. He'll execute it. He'll be able to go through 1, 2, 3 and hit the guy. And I think that's someone that, is going to stay in the league for a long time, but a franchise quarterback, we'll see. I'm not sure he has the complete skill set to be that. So I think Drew Aller's the answer. But I think, the answer right now, honestly, might be, I'm not sure the future quarterback or future franchise quarterbacks on their roster right now. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be in the quarterback market probably next year.
Yeah, and that's a big question too. I think, like you said, I don't know if either one of these will be ready in 2027. I think you would agree with that. But the Steelers have got to find an answer to quarterback. It's just been, as you know, more better than we do, just really a revolving door right there. They got to figure that out if they're going to take the next step. Hey, Nick, we're out of time. Man, appreciate your time spending with us here. Again, if we don't talk before camp, stay cool, stay hydrated, find a way, and hopefully we'll talk with you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate that.
All right, appreciate you. Thanks so much. Nick Farabaugh joining us once again. He's the Steelers beat writer for PennLive.com, talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers' new era right now. Mike McCarthy is now the coach, and we'll look to see what they can do without Mike Tomlin. Maybe, like I said, win a playoff game. All right, much more to come here on the Sports IQ.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
Welcome back here to the show. Producer Tony talking with us now. Tony, you had a chance to watch that entire Serena match, and you're right. Obviously, we're all rooting for her to get the win, but just to see her walk out on that court and to compete, and then to walk out, like you said, just with such grace. I got to be honest. It didn't matter that she lost to me. Just to see her out there was really all I needed.
Yeah, it was wonderful to see her back out there, back at center court, back where she does, what she does best. And it was inspirational. It was inspiring. it was just fun to watch. And, I was a captive audience because, look, at that point I was on a plane, Larry, for the day job. I was flying back from Seattle. So I was a captive audience, had nowhere to go. And I was enthralled for the entire 2 hours and 33 minutes of that match. I couldn't put it down. I was like, kept waiting. Like, I need a commercial break because I got to go use the restroom. So I'm going to need you to go do something for 45 seconds so I can get up and hit the head real fast. But it was just wonderful to see. And her attitude was great. And you could see her, they talked about it in the match that she was learning again as the match progressed about where to place shots, where to move things and do things. At 44 years old, after being off for 3 years, to come back and do it, that's a great inspiration to people in that age group to keep pushing forward, that you're never too old, that you can keep doing things. And I just love the fact that she did it and she tried it. Look, if we never see her again in a singles match, so be it. I would hope that maybe she tries to come back and do another attempt, because really she played really well. You give Joint credit. Joint probably played the match of her life yesterday. I mean, it's not like Serena beat herself. Joint played well enough to win, but with her career record, you have to wonder, like, is this as good as she could possibly play? I think she was keyed up to play in the match, and it showed.
Yeah. I think with Serena, it'd be great. Well, we saw her at Wimbledon, to have her at U.S. Open, and I just think of all of those primetime matches late on USA Network, back in the heyday when she and Venus were on top. It'd be thrilling to have her come back and be in that kind of setting there in New York, where she had such great success as well. And we have to remember that, you and I go back long enough. We know that once upon a time, 30 was ancient in tennis.
Yeah.
And she's retired for 4 years, but she's 44. And yeah, she didn't win, but she competed. She was right there toe to toe with one of the young top players on the tour right now.
Yeah, I mean, her serves were good. She had serves that were averaging 120 miles an hour again, which is phenomenal. And you take a look at it, and having given birth to 2 children, and to do what she's doing. Again, just so very inspiring in a time where the world is looking for inspiration. She gave it to us. She gave it to us for 2 hours and 33 minutes, and we should all be grateful that she did.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, the other big story, let the LeBron James sweepstakes begin again. Maybe the last time. We will see. We've heard some buzz already about him maybe going to Golden State, and we'll see if that plays out. But making the move really early for the Lakers, and saying, listen, the Lakers needed to make this move. It needs to become Luka's team that they're going to build for the future. And so LeBron walking away allows that now to happen.
Yeah, now the Lakers have some cap space to work with, and they've got more because they also lost Luke Kennard. They also lost Marcus Smart. So now you've got to find bench players and role players to fit in, as well as a couple of big-time starters to fill in, around and do the things that LeBron was doing for the Lakers. So they've still got a bunch of work to do to get that done. Where he ends up, well, that's interesting. Does he fit at Cleveland? I don't know. I can't see LeBron playing with James Harden because, LeBron, he expects guys to play both ends. He used to tolerate Smith back in the Cleveland days because he could provide instant offense. Maybe he would do that again with Harden. But, the times that James Harden were to bring out that Olay Matador's cape is going to really not sit well with LeBron. That's for sure. I mean, and the Warriors thing, interesting. Talk about a team that you expect them to walk out onto the court with walkers. That's how old they would be.
Right.
For some of these guys. I mean, no youth at all anywhere, especially if they bring back Draymond. It's like, oh my goodness. But it would be an interesting show to see, just to see if they could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we saw now some reports. The Wizards are saying they're not interested in making a deal for Anthony Davis. So that piece of the equation, if that was on the table, then that's no longer a part of the conversation. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. LeBron has never played for a veteran coach, and Steve Kerr would fit that. But I do think now at the end of his career, he may be willing to adjust his game to accommodate his game with another great in Steph Curry, another future Hall of Famer in Draymond Green. It may be a different situation now than what it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it would be fun to watch. I would love to see Steph get one more shot at another ring. I mean, and LeBron has a chance to make history. He could be the first player ever to win rings with 4 different franchises. He loves those kind of records, so it could be interesting out there if they can, like I said, put it together and get enough glue and tape and, surgical implements to hold them all together for 82 games and the playoffs.
Yeah. What's that ad? Voltaren for the arthritis or whatever. So exactly. All right. We'll leave it there. Thanks again to our guests stopping by. We appreciate them. AJ Scott, also Nick Farabaugh. Appreciate you as well. Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Make it a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.